Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into the world of visual aesthetics today.
Yeah.
Um, we're going to be looking at this fascinating chapter, Aesthetic Theory of Visual Communication by Dennis Dake. And we're going to try to, I don't know, kind of get to the bottom of like why we're so drawn to certain visuals. You know, is it just like a gut feeling or is there something more going on?
Yeah, I think Dake would say there's definitely something more to it. Like he makes this point that it's not just about like what we see, right? Like the actual visual elements. It's also about how those elements are arranged, how they
Yeah.
interact with each other. He calls this the visible and structural aspect of aesthetics.
Oh, interesting. So it's like almost like a visual language with its own kind of grammar and syntax.
Yeah, exactly. Like think about like the Apple logo, right? It's so simple, but it's also so iconic. And the way that like the bite is taken out of it and the shape of the apple itself, the metallic sheen, like all of those things work together to kind of create this feeling of sophistication, of innovation.
Yeah.
And that's visual structure in action.
Yeah, that's a great example. I'm starting to see how this visual language can really shape our perception. What else did Dake highlight?
Well, he also talks about how aesthetic experiences are often implicit, right? Meaning that like we grasp the meaning instantly without needing words. Like think about road signs. A red octagon, it instantly signals stoppee, no matter what language you speak, what
Oh,
culture you're from. Like the visual itself carries the message.
right, right. Makes sense. But if aesthetics are so implicit, like how do we even begin to analyze them?
Yeah. Well, that's where Dake's idea of holism comes in. He argues that visual aesthetics are holistic. We experience beauty as a unified whole, not just as a collection of individual parts. Like a great website isn't just about having pretty pictures. It's about how the layout, the typography, the colors, the imagery, like all of those things work together to create a cohesive and user-friendly experience.
So it's about the synergy of all the elements working together to create that impact.
Exactly. And this actually brings us to another really fascinating point that Dake makes, which is that aesthetics they're cognitive and they're generative, meaning, visual beauty doesn't just evoke an emotion, right? It can also spark new thoughts, new
Oh,
ideas.
wow. So we're not just like passive observers. The visuals we engage with can actually like stimulate our minds and maybe even lead to new insights. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Sure. Think about like abstract art, right? It's not trying to represent anything concrete, but it can evoke all sorts of emotions, interpretations, and that active mental engagement that it sparks. That's what Dake is talking about when he says generative. It kind of pushes us to think differently, to make new connections.
That's really interesting. So even though beauty can be subjective, there's like this underlying cognitive process that makes us engage with it on a deeper level.
Yeah.
But if defining aesthetics is so challenging, like how do we even begin to understand its impact on us?
Well, that's a question philosophers have been wrestling with for centuries. Maybe we should take a little journey through time, see how our understanding of aesthetics has evolved. Starting with Plato.
Okay, yeah, lead the way. I'm curious to see how like ancient philosophy connects to our modern understanding of visual communication.
Right. Well, Plato, he believed that beauty wasn't just about visual appeal. He saw it as a reflection of a higher ideal, something that could inspire us, elevate our souls. He even linked the experience of beauty to the feeling of love.
Wow. So even back then, philosophers recognized the profound impact that beauty has on our emotions, huh? It
Yeah.
wasn't just about what looked pleasing to the eye, but about something deeper.
Exactly. And while Plato's ideas were very much rooted in philosophy, the definition of aesthetics has definitely evolved over time. It's become more nuanced, more encompassing.
Huh.
But the core idea that beauty evokes a powerful emotional and intellectual response that remains central.
Yeah, it seems like this concept of beauty having a deeper meaning is kind of essential to understanding how visual communication really works, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Plato's emphasis on the emotional and intellectual aspects of beauty helps to explain why certain visuals resonate with us so deeply, even if we can't always articulate why. And that insight is crucial, especially when we consider how, visual communication has just exploded in our modern world.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we're just bombarded with visuals constantly, but it's the ones that tap into this deeper level of aesthetic understanding that really capture our attention.
Exactly. And as we move forward in our exploration of visual aesthetics, it's important to keep this historical context in mind. It reminds us that our fascination with beauty isn't just some superficial whim. It's a deep-seated human impulse, one that has driven artistic and philosophical inquiry for centuries.
So we've talked about the philosophy side of things, but what about like the science? How does modern science approach aesthetics?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. There's this whole field called neuroaesthetics, and basically what they do is they use brain imaging, like fMRI and stuff, to actually see what's happening in our brains when we experience beauty.
Wow, so we can actually like see beauty happening in the brain.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. There is this groundbreaking study by Samir Zaki at University College London, and they found that when people were looking at like aesthetically pleasing artwork, it actually activated the same reward centers in the brain that light up when we experience other pleasurable things like love or food.
So our brain is literally rewarding us for experiencing beauty.
Pretty much. And it's not just art either. Other studies have shown that certain visual features like symmetry, color contrast, even the golden ratio,
Hmm.
these things consistently trigger those pleasure centers.
Yeah. Huh. So that explains why like those elements are so prevalent in design and photography. They're tapping into something fundamental about how our brains are wired, right?
Yeah.
But is it really that simple? Like, can we just apply these rules of beauty and create a masterpiece?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, while these findings are definitely valuable, it's important to remember that beauty is also influenced by, personal experiences, cultural background, context.
Right.
Right.
Right. What might be considered beautiful in one culture could be totally different, even offensive in another. So how do we reconcile these like universal principles with the subjective nature of beauty?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? And it's something that designers and artists are constantly grappling with. It's about finding that balance between applying these scientific insights while also being mindful of the specific audience and context.
So it's not just about blindly following formulas, but understanding how they work and then like adapting them creatively.
Exactly. Think about it like music. There are fundamental principles of harmony and rhythm, but it's the artist's unique expression within those boundaries that creates something truly captivating.
Okay. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. We've got this really fascinating interplay between like these hardwired responses in our brains and then the individual and cultural filters that we bring to the experience of beauty. But how do we actually apply this knowledge practically? Like, what does it mean for someone who's not, a designer or an artist?
That's a great question. Well, whether you're creating a presentation, decorating your home, even just, choosing what to wear, understanding these principles can help you make more informed and impactful choices.
So it's not just for like the pros, right?
Right.
This stuff can actually help anyone communicate more effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about storytelling, for example. The visuals, they play a huge role in how we engage with a narrative, whether it's a movie or a video game or even, just a simple presentation.
Oh yeah. Can you give me some like specific examples? I'm really curious to see how this all kind of comes together.
Sure, sure. Let's take color in film, for instance. Like warm colors, they tend to evoke feelings of happiness, excitement, whereas cool colors can create a sense of calm or even mystery. And directors, they use this understanding of color psychology to kind of subtly guide our emotional responses to the story.
Huh. That's really interesting. I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, it makes total sense. Are there any other like visual techniques that storytellers use to kind of tap into these principles?
Oh, tons. Composition is a big one. The way a scene is framed can draw our attention to specific elements, like a
Okay.
wide shot. That can establish a sense of scale and grandeur, whereas a close-up can, create intimacy, emotional intensity.
So even just like the way the camera is positioned can have a huge impact on how we perceive the story. It's like there's a
Yeah.
whole nother layer of communication happening beneath the surface.
Exactly, exactly. And these techniques, they aren't just limited to, traditional storytelling either. Think about like user interface design, the placement of buttons, the use of white space, the overall visual hierarchy of a website. All of that contributes to the user's experience.
So like when I'm I'm struggling to navigate a website or an app, it might be because the designers didn't like effectively utilize these principles of visual hierarchy.
It's definitely possible. Yeah. A well-designed interface, it should guide the user intuitively, make it clear, where to click, what information is most important, how to accomplish their goals. And when it's done well, it's almost invisible. It just works.
No, this has been such a mind-blowing deep dive. We've covered so much from ancient philosophy to like cutting-edge neuroscience, and it all points to this incredible power of visual aesthetics, how it shapes our perceptions, how it influences our behavior.
Yeah, it's really made me realize how much we kind of take for granted when it comes to visual communication. I mean, we're constantly surrounded by images and designs, but understanding the underlying principles can help us become more conscious, more discerning consumers of visual information.
Totally. It's like we've been given this secret decoder ring to unlock the hidden language of visual communication.
And with that awareness, comes a responsibility to use this knowledge ethically, thoughtfully, whether we're creating our own visuals or just interpreting the ones we see in the world around us.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect note to end on. We've been
Yeah.
given these incredible tools to understand and harness the power of visual aesthetics, but it's up to us to use them wisely.
Absolutely. Like with any form of communication, it's about using our knowledge to create meaningful connections, to inspire critical thinking, and ultimately to make the world a more beautiful and engaging place.
Well said. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of visual aesthetics. We hope it's piqued your curiosity
Sure.
and inspired you to see the world in a whole new light.